Part 1, The Shadowed Solitude. Alright, let's step back a spell, before that fateful storm clawed its way over the ridges. Picture the year 1847, when the American West was still a raw, bleeding wound of untamed land, pine forests thick as a preacher's guilt, rivers carving canyons like God's own switchblade, and peaks that scraped the underbelly of heaven. That's where you'd find Thorn Blackwood, hunkered down in a cabin he'd hacked out of Blackthorn Gulch with nothing but an axe and a grudge against the world. Thorn wasn't born a hermit, no sir, he was carved from the same frontier grit as any trapper worth his salt. Back in his 20s, he'd been a force among the fur brigade, trading beaver pelts from the Yellowstone to the Platte, laughing with roughnecks around campfires that spit embers like defiant stars. He had a wife then, Evelyn, with hair like autumn maple and eyes that could coax a smile from a storm cloud. And a boy, little Jasper, no more than 5, with Thorn's broad shoulders already hinting at the man he'd become. They were building a life in a sod-roofed claim near Fort Laramie, dreaming of a spread with room for horses and maybe a girl or two to chase the chickens. But dreams in the mountains are fragile as hoarfrost. One crisp October dawn, while Thorn was out checking snares, a band of Blackfoot raiders fleeing their own wars with the Crow swept through like a fever dream. Evelyn fought like a she-bear, barricading the door with a table leg, but they dragged her away screaming Jasper's name. The boy hid in the root cellar, but the flames from the torch they hurled took him before Thorn could even smell the smoke. By the time Thorn rode back, bloodied from his own skirmish miles off, all that remained was ash and echoes. He tracked those raiders for weeks, a one-man vengeance trail that left 3 dead and him with a Cheyenne arrow scar across his ribs that still aches come winter. But the 4th slipped into the Badlands, and Thorn, well, he just stopped. Buried his rage in Blackthorn Gulch, high enough that no one bothers you, low enough that avalanches don't claim the roof every spring. 12 years, that's how long he'd been a ghost in his own skin. His days blurred into a rhythm as steady as a metronome. Dawn cracks the sky, he chops wood till his hands blister, checks the traps for rabbit or fox enough to keep the wolves from his door, but not enough to call it living. Afternoons, he'd mend his leathers by the fire, the crackle the only voice he trusted. Nights, that's when the shadows grew teeth. He'd sit with a tin cup of creek water pretending it was whiskey, staring at the rafters where Evelyn's locket hung like a noose. "You should have been quicker, old man," he'd mutter to the flames, his voice gravel from disuse. "Should have smelled the danger on the wind." The mountains didn't answer, but they listened, holding his secrets in their granite fists, whispering back only the howl of coyotes or the groan of wind through fir boughs. Folks down in Willow Creek, the nearest scrap of civilization, a dusty cluster of log saloons, a blacksmith who doubled as undertaker, and a general store stocked with sardines and sermons, still talked about Thorn in hushed tones over their Arbuckle's coffee. Blackwoodman's half grizzly, half grave, old-timer Silas would rasp, nursing his pipe. "Saw him once, comin' down for powder. Eyes like chipped obsidian, don't blink, don't forgive." The women crossed themselves, spinning yarns of how he'd eat trespassers for supper, while the men envied his solitude, wishing they could outrun their own regrets that easily. Truth was, Thorn didn't need company, the gulch provided. Berries in summer, elk in fall, and solitude thick as fog. He'd fashioned tools from bone and sinew, a snare from deer gut, a knife from river-forged steel, and his rifle, Old Bess, spoke louder than words ever could. But solitude's a cruel bedfellow. It starts as a balm, soothing the raw edges of loss, but over years, it hardens into stone. Thorn's beard had gone silver at the temples, his frame leaner than a whipcord, muscles coiled like springs under sun-baked skin. He'd catch his reflection in the stream, sometimes a stranger with hollow cheeks and a jaw set like petrified wood. "Who the hell are you?" he'd growl, splashing water that did nothing to wash away the emptiness. The locket was his anchor and his curse. Evelyn's miniature portrait faded to ghosts, Jasper's tiny tooth strung beside it. He'd trace them with calloused thumbs, whispering apologies to the current. "I failed you. Won't fail again." But failing what? There was nothing left to guard but memories, and even those were fraying at the edges. Come late November that year, the first real snows hit like a judgment. Flurries turned to squalls overnight, blanketing the gulch in white silence that muffled even the pine's sighs. Thorn hunkered deeper, patching chinks in the walls with mud and moss, rationing his jerky like a miser his coins. The wind picked up on the third night, shrieking through the pass like banshees at a wake, rattling the shutters till they threatened to splinter. He banked the fire high, embers dancing like fireflies in hell, and settled into his rocker with Bess across his lap. Sleep came fitful, haunted by dreams of smoke and screams, Evelyn's hand reaching through flames he couldn't quench. Then, just past midnight, it pierced the gale, a sound so out of place it yanked him bolt upright. A cry. Human, raw, laced with terror. Not an animal's wail, but a woman's voice, cracking against the storm like fragile glass. Thorn froze, heart hammering a rhythm he'd forgotten. Hallucinating, he told himself, rubbing eyes gritty as sand. But there it came again, fainter, desperate. "Help, please." Borne on the wind from the trail below, where the gulch path snaked up from Willow Creek. Bandits no, too solitary. Injured traveler in this foolish, but flesh and blood all the same. He cursed under his breath, yanking on boots stiff with frost, slinging his coat over shoulders broad as barn doors. "Ain't my fight," he grumbled, but his feet betrayed him, carrying him to the door. The latch stuck ice, damn it, and when it gave, the blast hit like a wall, snow stinging his face like needles. He cupped hands to his mouth, bellowing into the void, "Down here! Follow my voice!" No answer, just the wind's mocking laugh. Gripping Bess like a staff, he plunged into the whiteout, boots sinking knee-deep, each step a battle against the drift. Visibility nil, but his ears were sharp as a hawk's. Another cry, closer, to the east where the trail dipped into a ravine. There, half buried in a snow-choked gully, he found her. A wagon lay overturned, wheels splintered like matchsticks, crates of what smelled like laudanum and herbs spilled across the powder. And pinned beneath the axle, her leg twisted at a wrong angle, was the woman. Dark hair matted with ice, face pale as moonlight, but eyes, Lord, those eyes green as spring moss, fierce even in pain. She clutched a satchel to her chest like a shield, breaths coming in ragged gasps. "Hold on," Thorn rumbled, voice low thunder. He dropped to his knees, assessing, leg broken, likely, and hypothermia nipping at her heels. The wagon was no use, he'd have to carry her. "Can't move," she whispered, teeth chattering. "Storm came too fast. Name's Thorn. You got one?" "Lila. Harper." A nod, weak but proud. "No hysterics, just grit." He liked that. With a grunt that echoed his soul's weight, he shouldered the axle, muscles straining against wood warped by wet. It budged an inch, then two, enough. Scooping her up like she weighed no more than a fawn, he cradled her against his chest, her chill seeping through his wool. "Cabin's close. Don't you quit on me now." She buried her face in his neck, a sigh more trust than she knew. The trek back was hell, wind whipping, snow blinding, but Thorn's legs ate the miles, fueled by something fiercer than habit, purpose, flickering like a struck flint. By the time he kicked the door shut behind them, the fire had dwindled to coals. He laid Lila on his bunk, the only softness in the place a tick stuffed with pine needles and faded quilts. Stripping her sodden boots and stockings revealed the break, clean, but swelling fast. "Gotta set it," he said, hating the necessity. Her nod was steel. She bit down on a leather strap he offered, eyes locked on his. A crack, a muffled keen, and it was done splinted with straight branches and torn shirt cloth. Next, the hypothermia. He stripped the wet layers modest as a parson, eyes averted, wrapped her in dry blankets, and brewed willow bark tea for the pain. As dawn grayed the windows, Lila stirred, color creeping back to her cheeks. "You saved me," she murmured, voice hoarse but warm. Thorn poured the tea, avoiding her gaze. "Anyone would've. Not up here. They call this devil's backbone for a reason." She sipped, wincing. "What brings a healer like me this far from anywhere chasing ghosts?" Thorn paused, ladle mid-air. Healer, that explained the satchel vials glinting like captured stars, poultices wrapped in oilcloth. "Chasing nothin'," he lied, easy as breathing. "Just passing through. Wagon from Willow Creek." She nodded, shadows crossing her face. "Fleeing, more like. Town life's got teeth sometimes." "No more," she clammed up, sipping in silence. Thorn busied himself with breakfast corn dodgers and venison hash, simple fare that filled the belly if not the heart. They ate across the table, the fire popping like awkward company. Her leg throbbed, but the tea dulled it. She watched him with those moss-green eyes, seeing too much. "Thorn Blackwood," she said softly, as if testing the name. "Heard whispers in the creek. The man who talks to mountains." He snorted, a rare spark of humor. "Mountains talk back less than folks." But her laugh, soft, like rain on leaves, cracked something in. Part 2, Whispers in the Wild. The descent from Blackthorn Gulch tested them both, that first clear morning after the blizzard. Sunlight sliced through the pines like golden knives, melting the top layer of snow into treacherous slush that sucked at their boots with every step. Thorn led the way, his long strides measured to match Lila's hobble on the makeshift crutch, a stout pine branch padded with rabbit fur. She gripped it white-knuckled, face set in determination, but sweat beaded her brow despite the chill. "Easy now," he murmured, offering an arm when the path steepened. She took it, her touch light as thistledown on his sleeve, sending a jolt through him he hadn't felt since Evelyn's fingers traced his scars. Willow Creek sprawled at the gulch's foot like a half-tamed colt. 30 cabins clustered around a muddy square, the creek gurgling silver through it all. Smoke curled from chimneys, carrying scents of baking cornbread and boiling lye soap, while the saloon sign creaked in the breeze, "Last chance liquor and lies." Thorn hadn't set foot here in months, preferring the high country's honesty to town's tangled tongues. But Lila needed bandages, proper splints, maybe a dose of town doc's laudanum if her pain spiked. And truth be told, a part of him hungered for beans that weren't his own boiling. They hit the main drag just as the noon bell tolled from the steeple, a rickety affair that doubled as schoolhouse on weekdays. Heads turned, old Silas on his porch, pipe frozen mid-puff, Widow Jenkins hauling water, bucket slipping from gnarled hands. Whispers slithered like sidewinders, Blackwood, with a woman lord's mercy. Lila stiffened beside him, chin lifting. "Ignore 'em," Thorn growled low. "They bark louder than they bite." First stop, Hargrave's General, a log-hewn emporium stuffed with calico bolts, tinned peaches, and tails taller than the rafters. Mr. Hargrove, a whiskered Dane with eyes sharp as his scales, blinked owlish behind the counter. "Thorn Blackwood, by the saints! And who's this vision?" Drugged down from the clouds, his gaze lingered on Lila, appraising not unkind. "Lila Harper," she said, voice steady as a hymn. "Wagon mishap up the pass. Need splints, gauze the works." Hargrove nodded, bustling for supplies, but his chatter flowed like creek water. "Heard the storm howled fierce. Folks sayin' you hauled her from the devil's own gully, Thorn. Hero stuff, that." Thorn grunted, digging jerky pouches from his pocket. "Barter, not coin." Lila added her own, a vial of elderberry tonic for his stock. As Hargrove wrapped the goods, he leaned in, voice dropping. "Watch yourself, Miss Blackwood here's got a rep good with a rifle, bad with words. Lost his folks to raiders, they say. Turned wild after." Lila's hand found Thorn's under the counter, a secret squeeze. "Wild's just another word for free," she replied, green eyes flashing. Hargrove chuckled, but the seed was planted, town tongues wagging faster than a prospector's pan. Next, the doc's shack, a lean-to reeking of carbolic and regret. Dr. Ellis, bent as a willow switch, poked Lila's leg with fingers like dry twigs. "Clean break, young lady. Set proper, splendid work." His eyes flicked to Thorn. "You, mountain man, been meanin' to check that old arrow wound. Frost'll reopen it sure." Thorn waved it off, but Lila insisted. "Fair's fair. You carried me, I doctor you." In the dim light, she unwrapped his shirt, revealing the puckered scar snaking his ribs jagged as lightning. Her touch was feather soft, applying salve that burned sweet with comfrey. "This from the raid?" she asked quiet, when Ellis stepped out for bandages. He nodded, jaw tight. "Tracked M to the Powder River. Got one clean through the shoulder for it. Worth it, jury's out." Her fingers paused, tracing the edge. "Revenge don't fill the hollow, Thorn. Seen it chew men whole." He met her gaze, something unspoken passing understanding, maybe, or the first flicker of more. "What's your hollow, Lila?" That letter sounded heavy. She sighed, readying the cloth. "Back in Ohio, I was Lila Beaumont, Doc's daughter, promised to a mill owner's son. He turned mean after vows, fists like hams. Mother said endure, I said enough. Fled west with my kit, healing what I can. But shame sticks like burrs." Thorn's hand covered hers, rough palm to soft. "Shame's a liar. You're whole here." For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to that touch, the air thick with unsaid promises. They lingered in town longer than planned, Lila charming Mrs. Hargrove for herb lore, Thorn bartering pelts for axle irons to fix her wagon later. But shadows lengthened, and with them, darker murmurs. At the feed trough, young Buck Harlan, saloon hand with a chip on his shoulder, spat tobacco and sneered. Blackwood playin' nurse or keepin' her for his larder. Thorn's hand twitched toward Bess, but Lila stepped forward, crutch thumping. "Jealousy's a poor look, boy. Man's worth's in his deeds, not his dirt." Harlan slunk off, but the poison spread. By dusk, they trudged back up the gulch, packs heavier with goods and ghosts. The cabin welcomed them with firelight Thorn had banked earlier, and Lila eased onto the bunk with a groan of relief. He stirred rabbit stew chunks simmered with wild onions, thick as comfort, while she unpacked her haul, arranging vials like soldiers. "Town's got heart," she said, spooning broth. "But teeth too." "Aye," Thorn agreed, settling across from her. The meal stretched, words flowing easier now. He spoke of Jasper's laugh, like bells in the wind, she of her father's lessons, stitching wounds under lantern glow. Laughter crept in her, teasing his mountain man grunts for conversation, him mimicking her precise herb chopping with exaggerated flair. "Your trouble," he rumbled, but his eyes crinkled, rare warmth blooming. Night deepened, stars pricking the sky like God's embroidery. Lila's leg ached less, but sleep evaded her. Thorn heard her shifting, shadows playing on the wall. "Can't settle?" he asked from his pallet by the door. "Memories," she admitted. "Yours too." He nodded, poking the embers. Evelyn sang lullabies. Jasper D. Beg for the Bear and the Bee. Daft tune. A pause, then, "Sing it for old times." Hesitant, her voice rose clear as a flute, weaving the silly rhyme of a Bruin bested by buzzers. Thorn closed his eyes, the melody wrapping him like a forgotten blanket. When it faded, silence hummed content. "Thank you," he whispered. Her hand found his in the dark, lingering. "We're both survivors, Thorn. Maybe, that's enough to start with." Come morning, the bond had shifted, subtle as spring thaw, but undeniable. Thorn scouted the ravine for her wagon's salvage, hauling crates while Lila brewed coffee strong as tar. They worked side by side, her directing from the porch, him grunting responses that hid a smile. But mid-afternoon, hoofbeats echoed up the trail, 3 riders, dust-caked and official. Willow Creek's marshal, Jed Harlan, kin to the spitter, broad as a barrel with a badge pinned like a grudge, and 2 deputies, rifles loose but eyes hard. "Blackwood!" Jed bellowed, reining up. "Heard you got company." Miss Harper Town's worried wagon flipped, "No word. Folks say you're holdin' her captive up here." Lila hobbled out, fire in her gaze. "Captive man's my savior, Marshal. Legs broke, storm pinned me. We're fine." Jed's lip curled. "Fine with him, gal. Your pa in Ohio wired us runnin' from a brute, they say. This here's just another cage." Thorn stepped forward, a wall of quiet fury. "She speaks for herself. Ride out." Deputies shifted, hands hovering. Jed spat. "We'll see. Doc says check on her tomorrow. Keep your paws clean, trapper." They wheeled away, but the threat hung like smoke. That night, over cornbread and beans, tension simmered. "They'll be back," Lila said, voice tight. "Pa's reach is long, thinks he knows best." Thorn's fists clenched. "Let 'em come. Ain't losin' you to small men." Her eyes softened, hand on his. "Not losing me. But, what if I stay willingly?" The question hung, heavy as the snow's returning. Thorn's heart thundered, old walls cracking. World could use more healers. And, company. A smile, tentative. But as stars wheeled overhead, the gulch whispered warnings the trial was just beginning, and the wilds never forgave the unwary. Part 3, Trials of the Heart. The marshal's visit left a chill in the cabin that no fire could chase, like frost etching the windows of Thorn and Lila's fragile peace. Dawn brought grey skies threatening more snow, and with it, the weight of unspoken fears. Lila woke first, brewing chicory root to steady her nerves, while Thorn checked the perimeter snares reset, Bess oiled, just in case. "They won't drag me back," she vowed over breakfast, her green eyes fierce as evergreen. "But Pa's got friends, judges, telegraphs. If Jed pushes." Thorn set his mug down, voice low and sure. "Then we push harder. Willow Creek's got a circuit preacher comin' through next week. Words from him, paper if need be, you choose your path." She nodded, gratitude warming her like sunlight, but the seed of doubt had taken root. That afternoon, as Thorn felled a pine for firewood, axe bites echoing like accusations, Lila sorted her salvaged crates, uncovering a hidden compartment, a small pistol, pearl-handled, and a stack of letters tied with twine. One slipped free, ink faded. Lila, my dove, forgive your father's folly. Marry well, not wild. The miller's boy waits. She crumpled it, but tears pricked old wounds reopening. Word spread fast in Willow Creek, faster than creek melt. By midday, a lone rider crested the trail, not Jed, but Pastor Elias, a wiry Methodist with a Bible worn as his boots and a mustache like a broom swept sideways. He'd heard the scandal from Hargrave's wife and rode up unannounced, mule laden with jerky and judgment. Miss Harper, he called, dismounting with creaky knees. Town's abuzz. A lone woman, injured, in the lair of the gulch. Ghost scripture warns of snares in the wilderness. Lila met him at the door, crutch steady. Pastor, snares are what I fled. Thorns no devil, he's pulled me from one. Thorn emerged from the woodpile, axe over shoulder, sweat gleaming on his brow. Elias eyed him like a fox in the henhouse. Mr. Blackwood, rumors paint you dark. Raiders, vengeance, unchristian burdens. But redemption's at hand. Marry the lass proper, quiet the tongues. Thorn's laugh was bitter bark. Marriage man's a skin for my head, not my hand. But Lila's hand on his arm stilled him. Let him speak, Thorn. Words cost nothing. They sat by the fire, Elias quoting proverbs on companionship's balm, while Lila shared her flight bruises hidden but not forgotten. Thorn added fragments, Evelyn's songs, Jasper's tooth in his locket. The pastor's eyes softened. Grief's a chain, son. But love, that's the key. He left with a promise, I'll vouch in town. Come Sunday, we'll see. The week blurred in preparation, a rhythm building between them like a shared heartbeat. Lila's leg mended, crutch traded for a limp, her healer's hands now tending Thorn's daily aches, a poultice for his shoulder, tea for restless nights. Evenings, they'd walk the gulch's edge, her arm looped in his, pointing out elk tracks or eagle nests. See that, she'd say, tracing constellations. Orion hunter like you, but kinder. He'd grunt, but pull her closer against the wind, her laughter thawing places he'd boarded shut. Humor crept into her, mocking his bare growl snores, him fashioning a ridiculous crutch-whittled flute that honked like a goose. Play for the deer, she'd tease. They'll flee faster than Harlan. Yet doubt nipped at the edges. One eve, as stew simmered, Lila broached the unbroached. Thorn, what if I am running from Pa, from myself? You've made a fortress here. Could I, fit? He stirred slower, eyes on the flames. Fit hell, Lila, you've already cracked the walls. But the world's got claws. Raiders took mine once, won't let it touch yours. She leaned in, forehead to his. Then we face 'em together. No more hiding. Their lips brushed tentative, electric, a spark that lit the dry tinder of longing. It deepened, hands exploring scars and softness, until breath ragged and they pulled back, flushed as dawn. Worth the wait, he whispered. She smiled, wicked. Patience is a mountain man's gift. Sunday dawned crisp, the gulch path cleared by Thorn's shovel. They rode double on his gelding, Lila's satchel slung like a talisman, Bess holstered but loaded. Willow Creek buzzed, wagons hitched, children in starched pinafores, the air thick with pipe smoke and piety. The church, a whitewashed log hall with a cross hewn from pine, overflowed, Silas front row, Hargroves beaming, even Doc Ellis nodding. But in the back, Jed Harlan loomed, arms crossed, deputies flanking like hounds. Pastor Elias preached fire parable of the prodigal, on forgiveness's feast, but eyes darted to the door as Thorn and Lila entered, her limp proud, his stride unbowed. Whispers hissed, look at tame as a fox in a henhouse. They took a pew midway, Lila's hand in his, a quiet anchor. Communion passed wafer dry as regret, wine tart as truth, and then Elias called them forward. Folks, before we close, a word on mercy. Miss Harper claims sanctuary, Mr. Blackwood offers it. Who stands against? Jed rose, badge glinting. I do, Reverend. Gal's kin-wired abused wife, unstable. Blackwood's a killer, raider hunter. Town's duty to protect. Murmurs swelled, Widow Jenkins clutched her shawl. Lila stood, voice ringing clear. Protect from what? A man who hauled me from death's door. My husband's fists marked me deeper than any storm. Thorn's hands they heal. She lifted her sleeve, revealing faded bruises like thunderclouds. Gasps rippled, Silas swore softly. Thorn followed, voice gravel but steady. 12 years, I've carried Ghost's wife and boy, burned by Blackfoot fire. Vengeance blinded me once, won't again. Lila's light in that dark. Judge us by deeds, not yarns. Elias nodded. Then speak, town. Yet or nay? Voices rose Hargraves yet. Doc's gruff assent. Even Harlan's kin shifted uneasy. Jed blustered, this ain't over. Telegram to Ohio Common. But the tide turned, hands clapped as Elias pronounced, God's grace on you both. Stay, heal, love. Outside, well-wishers swarmed. Pie from Jenkins, a carved spoon from Silas. Welcome home, Blackwood, the old man winked. 'Bout time. Riding back, Euphoria hummed. We did it, Lila breathed, arms tight around Thorn's waist. Your words, brave as any hunt. He chuckled. Yours cut deeper. Like a surgeon's knife. At the cabin, celebration, venison roast glazed with maple, herbed potatoes, and wine. Hargrove slipped them tart California red. Laughter flowed freer, stories tumbling, her Ohio escapades, dodging suitors with fake ailments, his trapper tallies, outsmarting wolves with salt licks. As plates cleared, Thorn pulled a small bundle from the rafters. Evelyn's locket, polished new. For you, he said, fastening it around her neck. Not replacement. Addition. Tears glistened, she kissed him fierce, the night unfolding in whispers and wonders, bodies entwining like vines on ancient oaks. Love, raw and redemptive, bloomed in the fireglow. But dawn brought shadows. A rider, dusty boy from the telegraph office, panted up, Miss Harper. Wire from Ohio. Your pa's sendin' a man. Claims your ward, not woman grown. Arrives tomorrow. Lila paled, Thorn's face stormed. Let him come, he growled. Gulch'll judge. Yet as they clasped hands, fear flickered. Love's trial wasn't town's tongues, but blood's pull. The mountains watched, silent sentinels, as the real tempest gathered force. Part 4, the raging torrent. The telegram's ink might as well have been blood, staining the cabin's peace with urgent dread. Lila read it thrice by the window, sunlight mocking the words, daughter mine, return at once. Elias Beaumont arrives morrow with writ. Your folly ends. Pa. Her father's hand, iron-fisted even across plains and peaks. Thorn paced the puncheons like a caged catamount, axe idle by the door. Writ he can't chain you like chattel. Lila folded the paper, voice steady but eyes stormy. Legally, maybe. I'm unstable, he claims widow's whims. But Elias, he's kin, not foe. Cousin, once kind. Pa's puppet now. They spent the day fortifying not with guns, but grit. Thorn reinforced the door with oak crossbars, while Lila penned a letter to Elias, "Cousin, I've found home, not cage. Come see for yourself, judge with eyes, not orders." Sealed with wax from her kit, it went with a gulch hawk symbolic, but hope's small wing. Afternoon brought work, harvesting late ginseng roots, her crutch discarded for a staff, Thorn digging with spade and stories to distract. "Remember that goose flute?" he teased, mud to his elbows. She laughed, swatting him with a root. "Better than your singing." Sounded like a dying elk. But mirth faded as shadows lengthened. Supper was hasty hardtack and cheese eaten in watchful silence. Dusk painted the ridges crimson when hooves drummed the trail, not one rider, but four: Elias Beaumont, dapper in city wool, flanked by Jed Harlan and his deputies, badges winking like false stars. Thorn met them at the Treeline, Bess casual in hand. "State your piece," he rumbled. Elias dismounted, tall and lean, mustache trimmed precise, eyes blue as Lila's but colder. "Thorn Blackwood cousin speaks well of you, rescuer, not ravisher. But blood calls. Lila, dear, your father's distraught. Rid here, guardianship revoked till sound mind returns." Lila stepped out, lantern high. "Sound pause the mad one, chaining me to misery." "Elias, look, this is life, not folly." She gestured to the cabin, fire glow spilling welcome. Elias hesitated, scanning the sturdy walls, the herb garden neat despite snow's threat. "Pretty cage, Lila. But law's law." Jed smirked. "Mount up, miss. Or we make it official." Tension crackled like dry lightning. Thorn's grip tightened on Bess. "She rides with you over her corpse." Deputies' hands danced to holsters. Elias raised a palm. "Peace, gentlemen. Lila, one night talk with me. Dawn decides." Reluctant, she agreed, eyes locking Thorn's in promise. Till morning. The riders camped down slope, fire winking taunt. Night clawed long. Thorn couldn't sleep, shadows twisting into raiders' faces. Lila slipped back at moonset, blanket wrapped. Elias wavers, remembers me as girl, not ghost. But Pa's letter, venomous. They talked till stars paled, her dreams of a healing post in the gulch, his of a garden for Jasper's memory. Dawn's promise hung fragile. But the mountains had other plans. "Come first light," thunder grumbled, not sky, but earth. The creek, swelled by melt, roared like a beast unchained, jumping banks in frothy rage. Willow Creek lay in the flood's path, cabins flood prone, the church on low ground. Shouts echoed from below, torrent common. "Evacuate." Elias burst up the trail, face ashen. Lila Jed's leading folks out, but the bridge, it's buckling. Children trapped on the far side. Lila paled. "The schoolhouse, my old charges." Thorn was moving before words landed, grabbing coils of rope from the shed. Bess slung. "Stay," he barked. "Flood's death." But she clutched his arm. "No, we go. Together." Elias nodded grim. "I'll rally more." Godspeed. The descent was chaos path, slick as oiled hide, water sheeting down like God's wrath. At the creek, pandemonium, wagons mired, folks wading waist deep, Harlan bellowing orders but flailing as the span cracked. On the far bank, the schoolhouse teetered, 10 children huddled on the roof, tiny Tommy lookalikes, wailing as logs battered the walls. Thorn tied rope to a cottonwood, not sure as prayer. "Elias, anchor here." "Lila, signal M." She nodded, waving shawl desperate. Thorn plunged in, current yanking like iron claws. It seized him midstream, tumbling him against boulders that bruised ribs anew. He surfaced gasping, arrow scar screaming, but clawed to the bank, rope taut. Children spotted him Mr. Blackwood. And the oldest, a girl of 12 named Rosie, lashed a bedsheet lifeline. One by one, he hauled them, first the littlest, bundled like a papoose, then twins, slippery as eels. Water rose, schoolhouse groaning, but Thorn's arms forged in traps and timber held. "C'men, we ones ain't leavin' you to fishes." Midway, disaster, a deputy, fool rushing the span, slipped into the maelstrom. Current dragged him under, boot snagging a branch. Harlan yelled, "Man overboard!" Thorn dove without thought, rope biting his waist. He snagged the deputy's collar, lungs burning, and kicked for surface, two bodies bobbing like corks. Lila's voice pierced, "Pull!" Hands on shore, Elias, Silas, even Jed hauled frantic. They washed up mudded, deputy hacking river from lungs. "You saved me," he wheezed, eyes wide on Thorn. Last child Rosie, the roof buckled as Thorn reached. She leaped, true as an arrow, into his arms. The schoolhouse collapsed in a splintered roar, but they were clear, collapsing on safe ground amid cheers. Lila rushed, wrapping Rosie in her shawl, checking scrapes with healer's calm. "Brave girl," she murmured. Thorn, drenched and battered, met her gaze, love, fierce and forged. Jed clapped his shoulder, grudge drowned. "Oh you, Blackwood! All of us!" Elias, soaked but smiling, pulled Lila aside. "Saw enough, cousin. You're no ward, you're warrior. Tell your pa, Beaumont blood runs free now." Writ torn, tossed to the torrent. As waters receded by noon, town rallied, buckets passed, cabins aired, folks pressed hands, hero, guardian. Thorn waved it off, but Lila's arm in his felt like victory. Back at the gulch, exhaustion crashed, but joy buoyed. They bathed in the stream modest, laughing at mud-smeared faces, then supped on cold pie from grateful Jenkins. "Today's proof," Lila said, head on his shoulder. "Love don't just survive, it saves." Thorn kissed her temple. "And redeems." But as night cloaked the peaks, a lone rider approached, not threat, but telegram boy again, from Ohio. "Par relents. Wishes well." Tears flowed, chains shattered. Yet the wilds whisper change. With flood's fury past, Thorn pondered, "Town needs us now. Cabin for winters, but summers." Together Lila smiled, green eyes alight. "Build more than walls, Thorn. A life." Their embrace sealed it, but dawn would bring choices, the resolution waiting like spring's first green. Part 5, Echoes of Tomorrow. The flood's aftermath lingered like a half-healed bruise on Willow Creek. Muddy streets churned to gumbo, cabins listing like drunken sailors, but spirits unbroken, buoyed by the miracle of lives spared. Thorn and Lila descended again that next morn, not as outcasts but kin, arms laden with her herbs and his tools. Town embraced them, Silas pressing cider, Hargrove bartering free for salves, Rosie clinging to Lila's skirts with wide-eyed worship. "You flew like an angel, miss," the girl lisped. Lila knelt, bandaging a scraped knee. "Nah, just had a good hunter at my side." Thorn ruffled her hair, a gesture foreign as silk but fitting as a glove. Rebuilding became ritual. Thorn's axe rang days on end, new bridge beams hewn square, schoolhouse rising phoenix-like from the wreckage. Lila organized the women, poultices for bruises, tonics for chills, her knowledge a bomb swifter than time. Elias Beaumont stayed on, telegramming Ohio with tales of Lila's valor, turning her father's scowl to reluctant nod. "Proud of you, Dove, the reply wired. Choose your wild. Jed Harlan even thawed, sharing a pipe one eve by the saloon. Wrong about you, Blackwood. Man's measure ain't past its pullin' folks from the drink. Thorn grunted acceptance. Water under the bridge literally. Weeks wove into thaw, snow yielding to mud, then wild flowers nodding along the creek. Thorn and Lila's bond deepened roots mornings foraging morels, her teaching him salve mixing gentle hands, big man stir like you're courting the pot, afternoons planning, a larger cabin, room for patience, maybe a garden echoing Jasper's dreamed plot. Humor laced the labor, her accidentally slathering mud on his beard during a wrestle by the stream, him retaliating with a tickle that left them breathless, tangled in grass. Trouble, he'd growl, nuzzling her neck. My favorite kind, she'd retort, pulling him close. Nights were sacrament, fire-lit talks of futures, bodies speaking what words fumbled, love a steady flame against the dark. Redemption rippled outward. One dusk, Thorn unshouldered his ghosts fully leading Lila to a high ledge overlooking the gulch, where a crude cross of lashed poles marked Evelyn and Jasper's ashes, scattered years back. Brought 'em here, he said, voice thick. So they'd watch the stars with me. She traced the wood, then hung her own token, a braided cord of healing herbs. They see you now whole, not hollow. He pulled the locket from his pocket, empty no more, a fresh tintype, him and her, grins crooked as the creek. For the chain, he murmured. Tears mingled as they knelt, his prayer rough, rest easy, loves. I've found mine. Wind sighed approval, carrying forgiveness on its breath. Town trials tested but tempered. A prospector spat old rumors Blackwood's cursed, mark my words, but Rosie piped up, he saved us. You're the fool. Laughter drowned him, Thorn's rep shifted from spectre to steadfast. Lila faced her own echo when a letter arrived, not from Pa, but her old self, a bundle of Ohio clippings, her ruin fodder for gossips. She burned them in the hearth, ashes to wind. Past's kindling, she declared. We stoke our own fire. Come June, full bloom, Pastor Elias returned for a purpose. The church, rebuilt sturdier, hosted a harvest dance early, fiddles sawing "O Susanna," lanterns swinging like fireflies. Thorn, scrubbed to civility in borrowed vest, offered Lila his arm. Dance, she curtsied mock ground. If you don't stomp my toes. They swirled clumsy but content, her skirts brushing his boots, his hand warm at her waist. Whispers now were wonders, look at pair oases. Jed even toasted, to floods and fools may we learn from both. Under the stars, away from revelry, Thorn knelt not in dust, but on a quilt spread by the creek. From his pocket, a ring, simple gold, set with a wild rose quartz from the gulch, pink as dawn blush. Lila Harper, you've thawed my winter. Be my summer, my forever. Tears shimmered, she pulled him up, kissing fierce. Yes, Thorn Blackwood. Mountains to witness. Cheers erupted. Town had snuck close, Elias beaming with book in hand. Vows exchanged simple, in plenty and lean, storm and shine, sealed with a kiss that hushed the night. Months rolled to autumn, leaves turning gold as their days. The cabin grew annex for Lila's clinic, shelves for Jasper's garden, carrots fat as thumbs, beans climbing trellises. Thorn trapped less, guided more, teaching young bucks like Harlan's nephew snares and signs, passing the wild's wisdom. Lila birthed her first gulch babe, a squalling boy with Thorn's shoulders, her eyes, they named him Elias, for the cousin who bridged worlds. Hope wove through hardships, a harsh winter, a fever sweep, but together, they endured, love the strongest sinew. One eve, As snow dusted anew, they sat porch rocking, babe at breast, thorn whittling a bear for tiny hands. Survived the worst, he mused. Raiders, floods, fools. Lila leaned in. Redeemed the rest. Love's the real hunt finds you when you're done searching. He kissed her brow, locket glinting. The mountains, once merciless, now cradled them echoes of loss softened to lullabies, survival sweetened by surrender. And so, in Blackthorn Gulch, a new legend whispered, of the giant who tamed his grief, the healer who mended her chains, and the love that turned wilderness to home. The end, nah, just the beginning.